At the Loop Pro, we strip away the complexity from healthcare failures and get straight to the core lessons and recommendations that matter most. Each weekly episode gives you the essential information to help reduce harm, critical insights you can use, share, and apply. Let's jump into this week's episode where we're talking about a medication error where a nebulizer medication went into the patient's IV. And please, if you feel this information could help someone else, share it. Together we can save lives and reduce harm. We are taking a look at a real life case about a medication error that, it happened during an ambulance call out. And, it really highlights just how crucial communication is, protocol, scope of practice, all that when we're talking about medication administration. I mean, these things can really make a huge difference in those critical moments we all face. This case, it really stood out to me because it wasn't even a complicated procedure. We're talking like a routine nebulizer treatment, but it was something so familiar. A medication error happened, and it led to the patient going into cardiac arrest. Oh, wow. And the report, it really highlights the shock of the medical team. They just couldn't believe how a seemingly straightforward procedure could go so wrong. Yes, that's right. You could definitely feel that shock in the report. So let's kind of break down like what actually happened here. The patient needed this nebulizer treatment, right? But instead of the medication being delivered to her lungs, it was accidentally, mistakenly given intravenously. And that's when the communication breakdown just becomes so clear. You gotta lead clinicians. Instructions just weren't specific enough about how to give the medication or administer. Yeah, yeah. And in that fast paced environment of an ambulance call out, that lack of clarity, it really set off a chain of events like missed safety checks and people making assumptions, and ultimately that critical error. It's scary how easy it is for those assumptions to just sneak in, especially when we're all under pressure. And it really is. And that's why having a structured communication tool like ISPAR Identify, situation, background, assessment, recommendation is just so crucial. It gives us that framework, that checklist to minimize those potentially dangerous misunderstandings, particularly when you're dealing with these high risk medications. I mean, think about it. In your own team, do you consistently use structured communication tools in those high stakes moments? I mean, do you? That's a great question for all of us to really think about. Now, another big issue the report brought up was, violating the scope of practice. The investigation found that clinicians were administering IV medications even though they weren't actually qualified to do so. And what's even more concerning is that it wasn't just a one time thing, it had become normalized within the team. Raises a red flag for all of us, you know? Yeah, are we reinforcing and monitoring scope of practice in our own workplaces? I mean, are those roles and responsibilities clearly spelled out, documented? Are they regularly reviewed? Right. Is there ongoing training to keep everyone's skills up to date? And just as important, do people feel safe, reporting concerns? Yeah. Is there that culture there? Those are all such important questions that go straight to the heart of creating a safer environment for everyone. And the report really does make the consequences of overlooking those things just painfully clear. I mean, this patient, she went into cardiac arrest, needed resuscitation immediately. It's just a stark reminder that even small deviations from protocols, things that might seem insignificant at the time, can have really devastating consequences for our patients. Yes, that's right. This case, it just drives home the point that patient safety, it hinges on everyone doing their part, knowing no limits, and speaking up when something just doesn't feel right. What I really appreciated about this report is it doesn't just point out the problems, it actually gives us a roadmap for improvement. It outlines all these recommendations that can help all of us, make things safer for our patients. Okay, so let's get into those recommendations. What are some of the key takeaways for everyone listening? Well, the first thing the report really zeroes in on is communication. And it's not just, saying communication is important, it's like really specific. For example, take the lead clinician in this case. Using that ISBAR technique, identify, situation, background, assessment, recommendation, remember, they could have said something like, I need a nebulizer treatment for this patient. The medication needs to go in via inhalation, not IV. That level of clarity, really hammering home the root of administration, yeah, it leaves absolutely no room for anyone to misunderstand. I completely agree. That kind of clear, straightforward communication is so crucial, especially, like you said, when you're dealing with those high risk medications. in a really time-sensitive situation. Yes, in their report, it's a big advocate for using those reback techniques too, where the person who's getting instructions, they repeat them back just to make sure everybody's on the same page. It's like an extra layer of safety. I mean, it can really make a difference. Think about your own practice for a second. Are there areas where using ISBAR or readback techniques could make things safer for your patients? That's a great question for all of us to think about. Yeah. Okay, moving on. The report also talks about that scope of practice issue. It really pushes for clear documentation. Like, what are everyone's roles and responsibilities? Spell it all out. And it doesn't stop there. Regular training, like refresher courses, that's key to making sure that everybody stays within their boundaries and their skills are sharp. It's about creating that culture of accountability, everyone understands the limits and knows they got to stick to them. And the report talks about how important it is to have reporting systems that are easy to use. People need to feel safe raising concerns,
Right.
knowing they can speak up without fear of getting in trouble. That open communication, that's essential. Yes, that's right. It's about creating that environment where everyone feels like they can be a safety advocate. Now, another important area the report gets into is medication administration safety. You know, double checking meds before you give them might seem obvious, right? But when things are crazy, it's easy to slip up. The report, it really emphasizes how important it is to be super careful about how you're giving the medication. Like, imagine if we had clear visual guides for all the different routes, right there when you're about to give the med. That simple visual cue could really help reduce errors. I think so too. And what about doing regular practice drills for those high risk medication situations? Just like we give fire drills,
Right.
But owing to those critical moments, it can really sharpen our skills and prepare us for if something unexpected happens. Those drills can definitely help us stay sharp and react quickly in those high pressure moments. Now, the report also points out that it's not just about individual actions. Team dynamics and leadership, they play a big role in patient safety too. That's right. They're calling for more training for senior clinicians, those in leadership roles.
Yeah.
They need to be able to create a team environment where everyone's working together, communication is open, everyone feels supported. It's about cultivating that shared responsibility for patient safety. I completely agree. And the report also suggests having regular team training sessions just to improve coordination, make sure everyone's on the same page, especially in those emergencies where you need to think fast and work as a team. It's encouraging that the organization involved in this case, they're taking steps to implement those system level improvements the report recommends. Yes, that's right. They're reviewing their whole process for giving medications, especially those high risk ones, trying to figure out where the weak spots are, and then making sure that similar events are being reviewed by their authority to practice credentialing committee. That committee, they're the ones who oversee the qualifications and competencies of healthcare providers, right? And making sure everyone's practicing safely and in their scope. It's a really important layer of oversight. It's good to know they're taking concrete steps to learn from this event and try to prevent it from happening again. For more in-depth information on this reportable event, check out the link in the description for the original article on our website. There, you'll also find loads more resources to support patient safety. Remember, staying informed could save a life. So if you can please share this with someone who could benefit, you're helping us make a difference. See you next week.